welcome back to Geeks and Grounds, a monthly game club and bi-weekly podcast where we play games and brew thoughtful conversation together. Joining us in the cafe today and this month, we have co-founders of No Small Games and chosen ones who are currently ascending the tower, or perhaps have completed their ascent by this point. We have Emily, aka Specific Egg, and Kate, aka Cater Blossom. How are you both doing?
Hi, Jenny. We're doing great. Well, I won't answer for you, Kate. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. This is definitely going to be the highlight of my day. And I've been playing this game for, 3 days in a row pretty much. So I'm ready to hear about what y'all think and talk about it. So I guess I'm just feeling really excited, and it's beanie time. It's fall weather. So feeling good over here in New England.
That's so good. Yeah, we were just talking before we hit the record button about how the weather is changing, and I'm wearing a hoodie today, which is so nice. And it's not just a comfort hoodie where sometimes you just want a layer. This is truly it's chilly. So I need the hoodie today.
You need it.
Yeah. I love it. In case you are new or if you need a refresher, in Geeks and Grounds, we like to focus on one game a month, really percolate, brew over it, steam over it, put in whatever coffee analogy you want. We like to deep dive a game so we can talk about its themes and its mechanics and make those connections between what we're playing and our own lives. And this month, as we've been alluding to, we've been playing Chants of Sennaar as a community, and it is a puzzle game that gets you translating languages across civilizations. So if you have not started it yet, be forewarned, this is a spoiler cast, and we'll give that warning when the spoilers begin. But we'll be deep diving this game. So if you haven't picked it up, when I don't have a gong, so I don't know why I was about to say when I ring the gong, when we give the heads up.
Petition for there to be a gong on Geeks and Grounds.
Yeah, I'm we need the Geeks and Grounds gong at this point.
Yeah.
When I ring the GGG. I'm gonna make a note of that. We will have that signal, but you can listen up to that point because we'll be talking about other industry things. We'll do some overview of our thoughts of the game. But I highly encourage you, if you haven't yet, pick it up. It's not super long, and we have a hangout at the end of the month on September 27th. So that's this coming Saturday, if you're listening at the time of recording and posting. And it'll be a great chance to talk about it as a community. But first, we need to head over to the pastry case. This is our grab bag of topics, industry news, stuff we're really excited about. And I am super excited to talk about one topic, and that is the 6-1 Indie Showcase, which launched or broadcast just last week. I know you both watched it and covered it. I was very curious. What are some of your personal highlights from the show? And we'll start with Emily.
Ooh, yes. Oh my gosh. I mean, a highlight for me is just always getting to see what Mike and Kyle and Becca and the whole 6-1 crew decide to do, because they always make it really special and really heartfelt. And this was no different from usual. Let's see. There are always some great sicko horror titles in there. Oneria was maybe my favorite of the horror games that we saw announced, in part because this is a survival horror game that merges 3D kind of retro inspired visuals with 2D pixel art, which I've never really seen before in a survival horror game. So that was super cool. And then Colorbound is a color-based puzzle platformer that just looks like it's gonna be one of those games that's cute and deceptively cozy, but then insidiously challenging and makes you beat your Steam Deck across your head. And I can't wait for that. I think it's gonna be really fun.
Right up your alley.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes, exactly. What about you, Kate?
I think Plum Road Tea Dream had me the most excited. It's it looks like it kind of is hard to explain, but looks very artistic. It focuses on a queer person of color's journey. And yeah, it looks kind of dreamy. And ever since seeing it in the showcase, I looked everybody up on Instagram, following them all. And the developer's been posting some really cool like imagery of their process of creating some of the artwork for the game. And yeah, it just looks like it's going to be really cool. And apparently there is like a live performance element to it, or is going to be turned into a live performance. So I'm obsessed with that whole idea. So I've kind of been thinking about that constantly since I saw it in the showcase. But overall, I really love what they're doing over at 6-1 Indie, and it's such an exciting time to whenever they have a showcase that comes out. And I will say it was also awesome to see. I don't think I mentioned this when Emily and I talked about it, but there was a game. I think it's called like Map. It's like maps.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like so map. Like everything is map. It's called
so
Map. And I'm just like, I love that we're really going for it because I love maps. I just like to look at them. I'm that person on the airplane that instead of watching a movie, I'll just watch the map the whole time and see where the plane is going.
Yes.
Because like someone's got to do it, right? Someone has to. So I'll
Yeah.
do it. So yeah, I just love maps. So I'm like, that was one that I forgot about until this morning, and I was like, oh, I can't wait for all those maps. So yeah, that one looked cool too. But there were just so many amazing offerings. So congrats to
Yeah.
the folks over there.
Yeah. Honestly, the whole team at 6-1 Indie, and I guess maybe I should have prefaced it because I started jumping in like, oh yeah, everyone knows the 6-1 Indie showcase. But if you don't know, this is, I think, probably one of the indie showcases to keep an eye on, if not maybe the indie showcase. Like they are, I think, one of the very few just, they're not genre specific or even region specific. They are just focused on like the most exciting upcoming indie games, which is really cool. They also have a great website, lots of awesome coverage. And I think, what is it? At PAX East, they announced that they're delving into publishing support too, which is just like, what can't they do? I don't know. 6-1 Indie, they're amazing. I will say Map was definitely a highlight for me. I loved Colorbound as well. Hermit and Pig has been an RPG I've been looking forward to for a long time. I don't know how long. I saw it back, I think it was back when Twitter still kind of existed, and I'd followed them there. And to this day is one of those quirky earthbound like RPGs where the turn-based battles have a little bit more action. They've tweaked the battles so they're not like as old school turn-based, but they're also conversationally based. And so there's a little bit of that. If you've played Undertale, you know, there's an element of like, are you going to maybe work together with some of these folks? Are you just going to be maybe a little bit rude to them? And it's about this old man and his pig, and they're fighting corruption and a corporation that's moving into town. And I'm always like, yeah, let's do it. Let's fight the corporations. So that one just looks really charming, and one that I'm excited about. And I believe we got a release date for that for November. So that's pretty exciting. So
That's very exciting.
And let me correct myself. Actually, let me look because we have the internet. I think it actually is not November. I think it's January. Now that I'm saying it out loud, yes, it is January. So we have until next year, but that's okay because next year's what? Just a couple of months at this point.
Away.
Oh no, it's true.
I know. When I realized that we were already almost done with September, I was shocked.
Yeah.
It feels weird. Yeah.
What happened to both August and September? I would like to know. I'd like my money back.
I deserve an explanation.
Months. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. I have just, it's been wild because I'm preparing for my last trip, hopefully, knock on wood, of the year. And in my head, my trip has constantly been like about 3 to 4 weeks away. And now it's like 5 days away. Just
That's
like, what's
me
going
with
on?
my trip tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Solidarity. Yeah. So this month, yeah. And I think the timing, I started realizing how far the year has gone already when seeing some of the release dates in the 6-1 Indie Showcase. Like, I do think that was a wake up call for me.
Yeah.
Same.
Truly. I also just want to actually quote Kate and mention, because when we were talking about the 6-1 Indie Showcase, Kate described it so well in that kind of what you were saying, Jenny, where it's not genre specific. They have this incredibly curated voice that they're bringing in their showcases, and it's just, I think that's what makes them, it's one of the things that makes them so indie, is that you're
Yeah.
not always going to get the same thing. You are always going to get a very clearly like 6-1 indie vibe,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always going to be great, and that's
Yeah.
so cool.
It's true. I think just to like just heap more praise onto that team, I think they do have they have a personality. And even when, like you were saying earlier, like, oh, they're the horror sicko games, it's like that is part of the DNA that I'm like, when I think of where do I go to look for the next horror games that I really want to play, I go to 6-1 Indie, and specifically Mike, the sicko over there who
Yeah.
loves horror games. And I just, it's, their voices are so strong, and that's reflected in the voices of the games that they are drawn to and curate for the shows and for their website. It's just really good job. Yeah. And I think there are a lot of showcases. I'm an organizer of a showcase of my own. And so it can be very easy to get lost, I think, in how many different options there are for folks to watch. And so I know when I find something that really resonates with me and my taste, that's like, oh my gosh, that's the holy grail. You know, it's because that's where I go for how do I stay in the loop of what's going on. And yeah, they have done an outstanding job.
Totally.
So true.
Yeah. So speaking of releases, I wanted to also shout out a pretty major, I would say, like indie, but maybe it's erring now into sort of like this nebulous double I, like premier indie. I don't know how to describe it. But Hades 2, which is an entity and force all of its own, is almost out of early access. And I was just really curious because as of this episode dropping, it will be 2 days ahead of its launch. Are either of you going to be playing Hades 2? Are you into it? Are you like, there are so many other games, I haven't even thought about Hades 2? Where are you with that?
Such a
We'll
good
start with
question.
Kate. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because we were talking about this yesterday. For each of us, what are we gonna do? And I really wanted to know if Emily was gonna pick it up at launch because I know she's a huge fan of Hades 1 or the Hades. And I feel it's funny because I picked up Hades quite a while ago, like as I was kind of getting into indie games. So the first time I played must have been a couple years ago at least, and at the time I hadn't really played very many games with combat, and so I think I was a little bit overwhelmed. So I don't know. As of kind of chatting with Emily about it yesterday, I've kind of decided like maybe I'm not going to go back to Hades and just pick up Hades 2 as soon as possible. I think it just looks really exciting. Like the trailer, come on, like the music,
Yeah.
the visuals. Like I just don't know who wouldn't be excited about that. It looks absolutely amazing. But I think the issue will be when, just because would love to get to it before the end of the year, at least try some of it. So that's kind of where I'm at. I would love to prioritize it as soon as possible once I've finished some other things for the podcast, but I'm excited.
Yeah, Emily.
Yeah, it's been an interesting September with all of these kind of surprise big releases coming up.
What?
What? I don't, yeah, what could I possibly be talking about? I feel kind of the same way as Kate. Yeah, like Kate said, we were talking about this, and I feel like I'm putting my like gaming media hat on more now when I think about what I'm going to play. And I think as we approach the end of the year, I want to feel informed as we get into award season, and thinking about my own like best of 2025. And I feel like I honestly am not going to get to both Silksong and Hades 2. So I feel like I need to pick one or the other. And I think I am going to pick Hades 2. I just have like Kate said, I have more of a history with Hades. And so I think I am. I did not play any of the early access. I'm generally actually pro early access for games, which I know is kind of a, divisive subject. But for a game like Hades 2, I'm like, I know it's going to be great. I don't need to see it as it's in development. I'm waiting for 1.0. So yeah, I think I'm probably going to be picking it up. But like Kate said, also, when is the question?
When?
Yeah,
That is a big question.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I am in the midst of Silk Song, which I'll talk about in a second. But I think I'm at the point where I'm relatively sure that in the next maybe few weeks, barring any major surprises in the difficulty of Silk Song, I think I should be able to finish my time with it in time to get at least a good chunk of play in Hades where I can feel like I can get to both of them. I was a little bit nervous about it when I did hear the announcement of Silk Song. So I was like, okay, I gotta like buckle down and really start to play.
Lock
Just
in.
because you both mentioned it's like we're getting to the time of the year where if you're in the industry, if you're in media content creation, this is like the time where you're trying to like prepare for all of these end of year discussions that we know are going to be coming up. I'm really excited because I had signed up for one of the beta weekends. There was like one period where you had like a really quick early access for like a week to an early build of Hades. I played it for maybe 15-20 minutes and I was like, that's all I need. I don't need any more. I'm just going to wait till 1.0 because I think that's going to be great. I will say I have not actually finished Hades. I got really stubborn at is it Theseus and the Minotaur? There's like a sort of milestone battle between Theseus and the Minotaur, and I was really stubborn, and I really didn't want to turn on the sort of the assistive mode where you kind of increase your power every time you die. Which that's not to say I don't like that kind of thing. I love that, but I also am very stubborn. And when I feel like I can beat something without it, I really want to be able to beat something without it. And so that's like my personal style as a player. And I got to the point where I was like, I actually don't think I'm having fun. So I'm going to turn this off and come back to it. And then I never came back to it. So I'm hoping, I think like Kate, I'm not going to go back to Hades. I'm going to jump into Hades too. And then maybe if it like really sparks something in me, I think over the holidays, I may jump back into Hades and give it a try and try to actually complete that story.
Sounds like a great plan,
Nice.
honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to just not be so stubborn, but I don't know. There's a part of me that's like, I get a little competitive with myself. And that's just for me, like part of a joy that I find in gaming. But yeah, cool. And the last bit of news that I wanted to share, this is just a little highlight just because it was something that I found really heartening whenever I see this kind of fundraiser happening, it's great. But Play for Peace, which is a fundraiser for Palestine, let me shout out the developer who is hosting it. Junch is an indie dev who is hosting it on itch.io. They concluded their time, or at least as of this recording, it is planned to be done by the time this is posted. They raised just over 100K for Palestinians to support work that goes to humanitarian aid there. And so I wanted to highlight it because that's just like continuously something I see game developers doing where it's like, I think sometimes, especially as a game dev, I'm like, oh, I'm just making games. What is that doing? This is one direct example of games making change happen. That's really positive. Not just the emotional, mental, positivity that comes from playing game and the growth that comes from playing, but like a physical, financial difference that's being made. So I wanted to highlight that fundraiser happened and that there are good things happening right now because I feel like we kind of need it.
We
Just a
do,
little.
yeah.
Don't we ever?
And there's so
Yeah.
many great games in it. There's amazing offerings in there. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say, I think this is a fundraiser I've seen, I think through different people and organizations, but on Itch, I feel like almost constantly there is some sort of fundraiser being created or happening. And so I think if you're like, dang it, I missed this Play for Peace charity bundle, when's the next one happening? I don't think there's an official date for anything, but I would say if you go on Itch pretty regularly, there's something that will pop up. Just give it a little bit of time. And with that, that brings us to what we're excited about. I'm I'm really excited to hear from both of you. Emily, if you wanted to kick us off, what have you been getting into outside of Chants of Sennaar?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. This fall, this whole year, 2025 is absolutely unhinged with amazing new releases. I'm overwhelmed. So I've played a bunch of like August, September games. One that I wanted to shout out is The Nightling. And this was actually brought to my attention by a friend of mine who works for the publisher. So just want to be transparent about that. This was developed by Twirlbound, which is I believe, a Dutch dev studio, published by Saber Interactive. And this is a very like Zelda style open world game, action adventure game where you're playing as like a knight squire essentially, and your knight goes missing, and so you're kind of trying to fill this void. And it's very sweet. It's like got a very charming cast of characters and story. Really fun combat. Your main like tool and weapon is this shield. This is like kind of Captain America, how you wield it. Yeah. And I really loved the sort of like dungeon puzzles too. It's hard not to keep saying Zelda as I describe it, but the dungeon puzzles feel very Zelda and how they're constructed. But it's just like if you want just a romp, it's a great romp. You're going around like fighting guys and like having silly banter with people. It's a great time. So that's The Nightling. I also got to review Henry Halfhead, which if you listen to the Indiscovery from at the beginning of September, I've been looking forward to Henry Halfhead for a long time, and it really delivered. This is from Lululu Entertainment, published by Lululu and Pop Agenda, and this is sort of a sandbox almost puzzle game in the same vein as like Untitled Goose Game, where you're given sort of like vague tasks or just an environment to play around with and experiment in as the eponymous Henry Halfhead, who is half a head. And they have the amazing ability to possess and sort of transform into literally anything in their environment. And it was just as fun and creative as I expected it to be. But it also had this really interesting narrative that went along that was actually like really nuanced and way more depth than I expected. So, and it's only 2 hours. So if you got a couple hours, you want a really charming experience and great music, Henry Halfhead. I played the Dice a Lot demo that was featured in the 6-180 showcase. This is a roguelike deck builder where you're using dice instead of cards. Very similar to Slay the Spire. I think that Slay the Spire fans are going to be really, really intrigued by this. It's a very different combat system. It took a little bit of learning to figure out like how combos work and like how your dice rolls like influence how much damage you deal. But it's all like Camelot themed, and it's just got a really cool creative like vibe to it. So so that was great. That's all the games not all the games I've been playing, but some of them. And then my listen and read is kind of a double dip because this is both a podcast and a Substack newsletter. It's called Culture Study by Anne Helen Peterson. I've been following Culture Study for a really, really long time now. Anne Helen Peterson is so cool. She covers, as the name suggests, all kinds of topics within culture and society. That includes everything from kind of economic phenomenons or like labor stuff. She's written a couple of books on burnout and like how we work and do labor in our society these days. But she also covers stuff like celebrity, like the concept of celebrity and specific celebrities and like the the image they've created for themselves, and stuff like why is it so hard to find good jeans these days. Like she covers just the whole gamut of everything. I love her podcast. I love her newsletter. If you're just interested in stuff and you want to hear interesting people talk about all kinds of stuff, that's Culture Study.
I think it's so funny because I think I've come across her work just like, being on the internet, but I did not ever really knew there was a Substack specifically. And so I just signed up for it right now.
Yes,
so thank you
it's
so
so
much for
good.
that recommendation.
Yay. You won't be sorry.
Yeah, Kate.
Yeah, so for games, I've mostly just been playing Chants of Sennaar, which has been great. We also played Sorry We're Closed, which I didn't mention in the notes, but that was so fun to play, and we have a deep dive on that one coming up soon. But
Nice.
yeah, I've been really obsessed with this TV show called The Newsreader, and I think it launched in 2021, and it's an Australian television drama show, and it's just about this news station and this team of journalists in Australia. And it's just such an engaging show. All of the characters are like very complicated and I feel like are very accurate. To like, I've never worked as a journalist at a news station, but I just love how they kind of are like showing what that experience could be like. And I wonder how accurate it is because like everything is rushed and breaking news happens and like all the characters like go out on the scene. And it's really cool because it's set in the late 80s, and just like the vibe, like all of the cars and the interior furniture and the costume design are so late 1980s. And what I really like about it is that it covers actual historical events that happened during that time period. So you get to like see them sort of like how people might have like reacted in media to certain like things like the Chernobyl disaster and tragedy and things like that. So it's really interesting. I've been pretty addicted to it. It has 3 seasons and right now it's up to like 1989. So I'm curious to see how far the show actually goes in time. But I highly recommend that. And then I've been listening to this album. I was really lucky to go see this artist live in Portland, Maine, which is the closest city to me. Like big city because I live really rurally. And yeah, this artist, her name is Mary Halverson, and she plays in like a sextet. Like, so there are all of these different musicians. Like, there's a vibraphone, and she's a guitar player, and there's a trumpet and a trombone. Um, and I went to this show and it was just like one of the best live music events I've ever been to. And I just like, I sat there and I closed my eyes the whole time. And I had like this really like, I almost had like physical sensations from the music, which doesn't often happen to me. And the next day I sort of had like a hangover from the experience, like an emotional hangover. So hopefully I'm selling you on it. The album is new and most of the songs they played live are from this album, and the album is called About Ghosts by Mary Halverson. No vocals, just musicians playing and a lot of times improvising together. It was funny because it was like traditional jazz, but then it had a bunch of like fun little almost space soundy sound effects that were made by the guitar and like some looping. So it was a really cool blend of musical genres. But the album is everywhere. It's on like all the streaming services. So
Cool.
I do recommend it for like but maybe like be intentional about it because I feel like if you tried to listen to it and do tasks, you would be like, what's going on? Um, so that was great. So I've been listening to that. And then I'm new to this person, this author, but he does a lot of, he writes a lot of things about video games and like about like queer youth, like adult literature. So I've been reading The Reparative Impulse of Queer Young Adult Literature by Angel Daniel. And yeah, this has just been really cool. It just kind of talks a little bit about like queer young adult literature as a whole, things like Love, Simon, or things that are like, for young adults, and like what kind of messages are in those stories, because we know that a lot of queer stories can really focus on tragedy, and then on the opposite side of that, sometimes they can just focus on all the joy. So this is just like really a more nuanced take in doing all the deep dives on like the different messages that are told in young adult literature by queer people and for queer people. So that's been really fun to read. So yeah, hopefully, I think that's everything. I feel like I went all over the place there, but that's what I've been enjoying lately.
Oh, that's perfect. And I'm really excited because there's like an open library online, and I found the link to
Yeah.
the book. So for folks who are excited about this book, The Reparative Impulse of Queer Young Adult Literature, it'll be in the newsletter, so you can take a look at it. And if you like it, you can pick it up for yourself if you'd like a hard copy. But that
Oh,
looks
yay.
amazing. Um, yeah, my time, I've been working a lot, and so my free time has been at sort of a premium in terms of just like what I have available. And then I had nieces stay with me over this past weekend, which was really exciting. But they're like three, like 2 and 4, like just about to turn 4. So they're at the age where it's nonstop. You must pay attention, or something could go horribly wrong, or they also just need that much attention because they're just that age. And so and we wanted to give them a cool time because we're the cool aunt and uncle. And so I
Absolutely.
haven't had time to do much else except when those moments happen where I can sit and breathe. I've been playing Silk Song. I am taking my sweet, sweet time with it. I feel like everyone else is in deeper acts and they've finished it and they've rolled credits and they're chasing hard achievements, and I'm like, I'm still in act 1. I am exploring and not rushing through anything, and it's been glorious. It's been so nice playing that way. I think there's been a lot of discussion around the difficulty and sort of accessibility, and I think those are really good discussions to have. For my personal experience, I do feel like, as someone, I did, for context, play all the way through Hollow Knight. I didn't go through any of the wild challenges or the arena things that I know is available post game. I just played through and rolled credits and felt very good about myself. um I'm a player who appreciates like being given the opportunity for persistence. I'm also a player, and this, I'll just add context, I'm also a player who does not mind like failing and having to redo something a lot. Like,
Mhm.
I find a certain kind of catharsis in that and a certain kind of joy. And I know everyone has a different barometer for how much of that you can take. I think Silksong is a game that requires a high level of that trait. I think if you want to play, and as someone who is not naturally good at the kind of game Silksong is, where it's got combat, like Souls-like combat, where it's quite punishing in the sense that a lot of enemies essentially do double damage for your one. um, there's a lot of opportunity for you to like take time to try again. And I enjoy it. I actually am having a really good time with it. I also know this is not the game for everyone. Um, and yeah, I think so far I'm just having a really good time being in this world. I think the music is beautiful. I think the visuals are stunning. And I am impressed by the ways that I think they've allowed the story to shine in ways that Hollow Knight story for me did not shine
Hmm.
initially, where the dialogue with the other bugs, being able to read some of the lore, and then seeing what's going on in the environment. I'm putting together a story that was actually quite interesting to play while also playing Chants of Sennaar, because
Mm.
there is this element of faith and devotion and this religious pilgrimage that these bugs are going on, that really paralleled some of what we saw in the especially earlier levels of Chants of
Hmm.
Sennaar. So I thought it was actually a really good companion if anyone's interested and wanting to have a really hard game in like in conjunction with maybe a puzzle game that isn't so punishing.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I guess I know, Emily, you said you were probably not going to jump in, at least for this year, uh, Silk Song. But Kate, have you gotten to try it, or do you have any interest in trying it?
I played a couple hours of Hollow Knight a while ago. Again, like when I was kind of new, just like getting into games in general. And it's funny because I was watching someone stream Hollow Knight recently, and I was like, you know what? This actually does look like something that I would like because I'm really into like puzzle platformers now. A couple years later, and I know that they're
Mm.
like that it's a Metroidvania and there's a lot of different things going on there, but I do see some elements of it that are interesting to me. But I'm glad you brought up like just like your style of as a gamer with these kinds of games, because I feel like for me, my style and where I'm at right now, I definitely need those settings that will kind of make it so I can, I guess, like feel good and get through certain parts
Mhm.
of games. And one thing I was telling Emily that has me, I guess, prioritizing Hades 2 over Silk Song is that I'm thinking it will probably have some of those settings, just like there's like the God mode in the first
Yeah.
Hades. But I think in terms of like gameplay and style of game, it looks really beautiful, and I would love to check it out. So yeah, I guess that's kind of where I'm at with that. I would love to, and like maybe like a couple years from now, I'm like, oh, I'm ready for something like that. But
Mhm.
it does look really cool, and I gotta say, I wish there were some options just so that I would
Agreed.
be more willing to pick it up, you know?
Yeah, I think of games like Celeste for me as a standout in as an
Mm,
example of that kind of game where um because of the options they put in, they were able to reach the widest at least like skill subset of players in terms of people who could turn on everything and just play for the story completely, and then people who wanted that level of extra challenge and they were doing the B-sides and all of that other stuff.
totally.
Yeah, I do wish that there were more on ramps for folks to learn how to play a game. Like, I guess there are probably other on ramps via other games. I wish Silksong itself provided on ramps to itself. But yeah, currently it feels like a game made specifically for people who love Hollow Knight and wanted
Mm.
more Hollow Knight, but like a little different. So
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting sort of realization to have while playing.
Mm.
At least the impression that I get.
Mm. I've been having a great time watching friends stream it, and I will say I feel like it has much more iconic characters than Hollow Knight did. I've been
Mhm.
singing the little ditties to myself. I
Yeah.
She
haven't
has.
even played it yet, so
It's so true.
it's
Yeah,
great.
I feel like the characters are really because there is more dialogue too, so I feel much more connected to all of them. And like the one who's like, I I forget the character's name. I keep calling the bug shawarma in my head, but that's not the name of the bug. There's Shakira and shawarma, and those are both the wrong names. But the one that's ringing the bell and like singing the little like sort of almost nursery rhyme kind of ditty.
Yeah.
That one is my personal favorite. I
She's
need
so
to
cute.
I need to learn the actual names of the characters. But yeah, no, I'm really excited. Someone in the Discord mentioned the latest episode of Remap Radio has a really good in-depth discussion on not just Silksong as a game, but sort of the meta discussions of difficulty around it, and
Mm.
how it's impacting our perceptions of the game, how it's impacting the way folks are approaching and enjoying the game. So I'm very much looking forward to listening to it. I think it dropped just today or like yesterday. So if folks are interested in more of that kind of discussion, I will also put a link to that in the newsletter, along with links to everything we talked about. So if you are interested in the Reparative Impulse book about ghosts or Newsreader or The Nightling, Henry Halfhead, Culture Study, any of that, Silksong, in case you forget that Silksong launched, all of that will be in the newsletter. So you can go to geeksandgrounds.com and sign up for it. Now, we are moving into our discussion of this month's brew, which is Chants of Sennaar. We're going to start with some high level like thoughts on gameplay, music, and like the art style, and then we'll have a spoiler sort of warning that will repeat again the gong, and then we will deep dive into the story and like more of our moment to moment, beat to beat experience while playing. High level, I am just curious on overall thoughts that you had on the game, maybe overall feeling you left the game with. We'll start with
Mm.
Emily.
I love this game. This is one of those games where I was like, they made this for me. This is everything.
Yeah.
I've dreamt of a game like this, you know. I think so much of the gameplay focuses on this sort of deductive like reconstruction of like how each culture's language works and what their different symbols mean and how to communicate how their language is structured, and I just loved that I would love 50 more games like this.
Yeah.
I think I will say, I think I got so excited and so locked into that aspect of it that at times I kind of like left the narrative behind. Like
Mm.
I took in what I was being told about these different, like the history of these groups, but then I was just so focused on the actual like task at hand of like understanding these languages. Um so just yeah, high level. I will say something to give context to like all of my thoughts on this game is that my BA in college was on linguistics, and then I minored in Mandarin Chinese, and both of those were like a huge like
Mm.
helping hand in getting into this game and being able to sort things out. And throughout the entire thing, I kept thinking like, wow, like I'm able to draw from and lean on like this background knowledge I already have. I don't know what the experience would be of playing without that knowledge, and like how approachable this is as a concept for folks who haven't like studied linguistics in depth. So I'm really excited to chat about it because I feel like I have this like really hyper specific experience of playing it, and I'm excited to hear about both of your experiences.
Yeah. Kate, what about you?
This was such a wild ride for me. Like it was I'm still unpacking it. I finished the game last night and I think it took me about 12 and a half hours to play. I guess like historically I'm not super keen on a puzzle game, and I don't have any experience with linguistics, and I also kind of struggle with visual cues and
Mm.
and also just like being able to see things in general sometimes in games. In terms of like if they're smaller or bigger. So yeah, it was really interesting, but I think overall like it was just such a special experience for me, and I found myself being so interested in the story that they were telling or what I was trying to get from it, but also just the visual and musical style. Like I just have so many thoughts on those things specifically, but I guess high level, I've never played anything like this before. I think it's super unique, and yeah, I'm still kind of just in the mind blown phase of my process with this game. And I don't think I've ever been so focused while playing a game before. So yeah, I think those are kind of some of my high level thoughts. Um, but yeah, it's very fresh on my mind, like the feelings that I had while playing it. And of course, there was a lot of confusion and frustration, but I think overall was such a special experience for me. So
Oh, I love that. I feel like I split the difference, I think, between both of you in terms of the experience I bring to it. I was a sociology and anthropology sort of like double major in my undergrad years. And so one of the subspecialties that I focused in on with the anthropology component was a little bit of linguistics. It wasn't my ultimate specialty, I guess, that ended up being like gender studies and some more like sociological stuff. But linguistics was a pretty definitive chunk of my undergrad years. And so it was really fun feeling like I was unlocking a little bit of what I had learned back then and like applying it to a game that I was playing now. I do love puzzle games. And I was really overall pleasantly surprised. I had played like the first level of this game a while back, and it was part of like game of the because it was part of game of the year discussions. I had like done a little bit, enough to feel like I got a sense of what it was. I think that sense was accurate, but I think the depth to which I would have maybe advocated for this game had I played more of it and finished it like I did now, I would have probably advocated it for it so much stronger because the puzzles are intricate and interesting. And I was getting the feeling I get when I think of playing like Outer Wilds or Obra Dinn, like puzzle games that I really love that forced me to take notes and really think about what I was doing. I think, Kate, you were saying like you were so focused when playing. And I felt that too, where I was sitting there just like really in the experience. And I
Yeah.
love that, with a couple of exceptions, small exceptions, within the gameplay. But overall, very much recommend this game if you have not played it. It's so, so good. The gameplay kind of breaks up into three components. The first biggest chunk is the language, sort of deciphering. Um, what I found interesting, and Emily, you are the expert, so you can also correct me if I am wrong. This is me pulling from far too long ago, was when I was in school. I thought it was interesting because the language that we're provided is ideographic. And so, like, the pictures or the sort of characters we're looking at both identify concepts, but they're also pictographic, where they are pictures that represent, like, sort of an iconography style, I guess, iconographically, what they're representing. So it's like both the literal kind of meaning of what you're drawing is what you see, and then also there's more abstraction happening. Um, I just was fascinated by how much we were able to decipher as we were going through this through context clues. And I'm curious, we'll start with Emily, like the language deciphering gameplay. Like, what was that like for you? How did that make you feel? Did you think of anything else?
it was just so cool. I think something Kate has heard me say over and over and over again is that I love when a game gives me an experience, or a version of an experience that I'm probably never going to have in real life, right? I'm not going to quit my day job and go become a linguist and go study a language that hasn't been documented yet. But this game gave me this little feeling like I was doing that, and I adore that in a game. I will say, like, having studied Mandarin Chinese specifically, I felt like gave me this huge leg up, because there's this concept in how Chinese characters are constructed called a radical, which is basically like a component of a character that oftentimes is its own character and its own word, but it becomes part of another character, and it attributes, or it denotes usually meaning, sometimes also pronunciation. We don't really deal with pronunciation in Chants of Sennaar, but like um right away in the first level, I was able to identify that they were doing that. So like in the devotee level, I noticed, oh, like a lot of the words that mean person here have the same radical as the word for human. It's like,
Mm.
okay, let that, they're working with this. So like in Chinese, for example, there's a radical shou, which is the word for hand. And it appears in verbs like tui, which means push. It's like the left half of that character. And so you can intuit looking at those, even if you didn't know how it's pronounced, you could at least
Mm.
intuit, okay, this is probably a verb, and it probably is a verb you do with your hands.
Hmm.
And that carries through a lot of the game. And so I loved that they did that. I felt like having identified that early made it a lot easier to intuit,
Mm.
because a lot of it otherwise is like just drawing on context clues, which I think they did a good job of
Mm.
offering. Or like I loved when I would come across like a statue or a mural, and it had a label or something.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Or a diagram. Give me a diagram and just like label it, please.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that was something I noticed right away, that I was like, thank you for using radicals. This is making my life just that much easier. But I'm really curious, like, Kate, is that something, I just don't know if that's something that's gonna be like
Yeah.
approachable to somebody who doesn't have my random specific background.
I gotta say, I was really going off of the context clues, but I was also just guessing a lot. Like, I was like, I wonder if that means this, because in the game you have a lovely option to write in, like actually type in with your little keypad, like what you think a word might mean, which then you can even see modeled in some of the conversations that you can read, which I thought was really helpful. I thought that it was
Mhm.
exciting to sort of just like, let's see if that's what that means, and see how it works in the context of a conversation. I also think that I was not like and I think I've said before, like I struggle with visuals anyway, so I was really going off of the vibes. Like even if I saw a specific symbol, like I'm the one that's coming out to me, that's calling out to me right now is like when you have to identify like a monster or something, and I was like, oh, this symbol looks like a monster. Like I was just I was just going for it. So and there that obviously was time consuming because you would have to try a lot of different words to figure out if you've matched it correctly to your journal. So that was kind of my process, was a little bit of like process of elimination, going off of the vibes. I'm like, oh, that looks like a boat, like that looks like a little sail, I wonder if that means like
Mhm.
vessel. So stuff like that. And I think especially in the first two levels, that was a lot easier for me to do. Like I feel like it definitely got more challenging for me. But at the beginning anyway, it served me well to sort of just try to guess what things meant. So that was kind of my approach.
Nice. Yeah, it was, I think I didn't notice it as quickly as Emily, but I think around the alchemists specifically, I had noticed that words that were mostly verbs that I could tell had like the circles that enclosed them, or a
Mm,
majority of that glyph was a circle. And so I didn't have like in my memory the name for it, but I did start to notice patterns, especially once you got to the really complex feeling glyphs where you're just like, this is getting so much more nuanced. There's like little swooshes and dots and things that I have to now pay attention to. And so I started finding myself looking for these patterns that have a real name, the radicals. And like, I think that's super cool. Also, apologies. I think someone's doing yard work outside. So
same,
let me
same
know if
here.
it gets too loud. And I'll try to make sure it's edited and post as well. Um, but yeah, I think the language stuff, it really made me think of also because just gaining so much information from these context clues and what's happening around it. And I thought a lot about both you and I think I mentioned it a few weeks ago, and Emily last episode you mentioned algo speak and sort of the ways that language evolves and how we introduce different words and through the context of us using it evolve the definitions. And it was neat to see how as I was creating the definitions for words, I think even the first one, it was like lock or unlock. And then as I used it, I was like, oh no, I think it actually needs to be wider of a definition. It's more of an open close. And it was fun to see how my understanding evolved as I continued to immerse myself in each civilization. And then I also thought of emojis and how
Love it.
now as we like use emojis, there are so many like full stories that, and there's I think even like sort of the joke activity where it's like create a story using 5 emojis or create a sentence using 5 emojis. And it made me think of that and how we now communicate not just with our written language, but we have this emoji language that we use too.
I love it. An emoji can say so much, you know?
Oh, I can say
Yeah.
so much.
And different things to different people, which is so
Yes. We
interesting.
talk about that a lot. Emily and I do, about like what does this emoji mean to you? I'm like, that means flirty, and then Emily's like, that doesn't mean flirty to
I'm
me.
like,
Like
I
we
use
have
this with
these
everyone.
conversations.
Wait, I have to know. There are two things. The first is just the smiley, regular smiley face,
Mhm.
like just super basic. How do you
Yeah.
feel when you see that in a text conversation?
Like without the emoji, like just like the dots and the smile, the
Just
bracket.
the emoji itself. Like, so it is the
Oh,
emoji, but it's just the like
I
sort
think
of
it's passive
thin.
aggressive, personally.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Unsettled. Unsettling. Something's
Cool.
wrong.
Me too. Okay, that's great. just doing a quick little poll. Another one
Vibe
that
check.
gets me, yeah, the ellipses is another one that gets me.
Mm.
Where you can see even denoting like there's the joke about, the older generation, they will use the ellipses to like just kind of like finish their thought. Like they just kind of like use it to finish their sentence, sort of, but it implies to us at least like sort of this ominous something like what's
Yeah.
going on.
Impending.
Yeah. It's like, and then so yeah,
Mine
it's
is
just
thumbs up. I get
Ooh.
irrationally angry if somebody thumbs up me.
Like,
I'm
just
like,
send a heart
okay,
instead. Just
you hate me.
it's easy.
That's fine.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Thumbs up. It's funny because I'll use it in Slack, but in my head, I'm like, because we have those like just react if you see something. I'll usually do a heart, but sometimes I'll just do a thumbs up if other people have, just to like add to it. But I almost never initiate a thumbs up myself.
That's real. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have favorite emojis that you like to use?
I feel like a purple heart is so friendly, and I know Emily feels the same way. I just feel like it's not too serious. Like, I could send it to my friend and not have them be like, "Oh, it's not a red heart." But then I have some friends that send red hearts, and I'm like, "Are we flirting or like what's going on?" I guess I read too much into all of them, or I have my own special interpretations of all of them. But I just love a purple heart or a pink heart for sure.
Yeah. What about you, Emily?
The melting smiley face is one that I just feel like really like expresses my like general state a lot of the time.
I love that so much. That's a really good one. I feel like I've used the upside down smiley face has gotten a lot of
Ooh,
use
yeah.
over the last few months. But I am partial to like the yellow heart. For similar reasons as Kate is also partial to like the purple heart because it's just like, oh, this is just like a happy, cheerful heart that is just meant to just be positive.
Totally.
Nothing attached.
Yeah.
Don't look into it.
Yeah, don't look too deeply into it. This is just a happy little heart. It's amazing. We had other mechanics though, in addition to the language learning that we did. The other big one, because this was maybe the most consistent of the additional mechanics, was the stealth. We had to, at multiple occasions, sneak through guards, robots, other things. I'm curious, and we can start with Kate. How did you feel about the stealth of this game?
I gotta say, I loved it. I love the stealth section, and I feel like I don't know if I'm like good at stealth. Not me bragging. I'm gonna brag. I am good at stealth
Go for it.
sections, and I feel like that's a stronger skill for me than I guess a lot of the particular puzzles that are represented in this game. So I feel like when the stealth sections came up, I was so excited. Like, my heart was racing, so excited, and I just like get such a thrill from a stealth section. And I was expecting them to be more challenging for me than they were. So I guess for me, it was just nice to have that, because that's something for me as a gamer that gets me really excited and engaged. And it was nice to take a break from like the constant like using my brain in this way to try to understand what these symbols mean, to kind of shift to something else. And I felt like it was an appropriate amount of stealth throughout the game for me. So I guess I just appreciated having that to break it up. And genuinely, sometimes it was terrifying stealth sections where I was like, I'm scared right now. But I love to feel scared. So yeah, I just like really love the stealth sections. But it's funny because I've heard most people say that they really didn't work for them or took them out of the game or they didn't like them. So I'm excited to hear what both of you think.
Yeah, Emily, what about you?
I agree with you, Kate, that it was an appropriate amount of stealth, but I still hated it. I was very stressed out. I didn't. Every time I got caught a lot. I'm not very good at stealth. And every time that you like a guard sees you, they have like a little eye symbol, and it's like yellow if they kind of notice something's going on, and then it turns red if they see you. And if they see you all the way, if it turns red, you don't really have a hope of escaping. And so I'd have this moment of like running my little guy around like, no. And I really hated those moments, like knowing I'd screwed up and there was no hope for me, but I still like felt like I needed to.
I know they do
my
give
best.
you your time to like get caught, which is so sad.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm glad for the inclusion of something else. I think it would have been too much if it was just exploring and trying to sort out the languages the whole time. So I'm glad that they had other gameplay elements here. I just struggled with it. There's, I think, nothing more than that. I think it was well designed. It was just not for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I wish I was a stealth girly. Like I want so badly in every game to love the stealth, and I just am. I think it's because I'm bad at it, and for some reason, I usually feel like in games that have stealth, I am not able to as easily see where I went wrong.
Mm.
Whereas, like, for example,
Mm.
like I talk about how I love, the failure of Silk Song, for myself, but that's because I often can tell, like, okay, I know exactly what I did wrong. So I can kind of like adjust my strategy. And while I do agree, I think the stealth was a good idea. I think it was paced honestly quite well. And for the most part, I actually felt like it wasn't too bad. I didn't get caught too much. Usually it was, I would learn from my mistakes and it would be fine. There was one stealth section in particular in the mines with the monster that we'll talk about later,
Mm.
um, that I could not for the life of me figure out why the monster was seeing me at the place I was at, because I was like, there should be no way I am behind a wall. But I was like, somehow always just a pixel perhaps off.
Mm.
And I kept getting caught. I was just so frustrated. So that was like my one sort of not so hot experience. But I was really pleasantly surprised by the stealth overall, even though it's just not my strength and I know it's not my thing. We also had some other little bits of gameplay sprinkled in. We had Sokoban, like the push cart puzzles. We had jigsaw puzzles, like a Flappy Birds esque mini game. I'm curious if any of those stood out to you, if you had any highlights or anything you wished wasn't included.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Emily. I feel like you're about to say something.
Oh, I was just immediately mad at the Sokoban. I feel similarly where I'm just like, that is my kryptonite. But I felt like you said about the stealth, Jenny, it wasn't too bad. I didn't suffer like just feeling like I was just going in circles, rearranging tiles. So I'll forgive them for that. And
Mm.
it's actually maybe my most memorable puzzle. So maybe kudos.
All
Maybe.
right. What about you, Kate?
I feel like the little mini games and puzzles were so fun. I actually really liked them, and I love like if any game has like is it Flappy Bird? What is it called?
Yeah, I think it's Flappy Bird or Angry.
Yeah.
Not Angry
Ang-
Bird. I think it's Flappy Bird.
Any game that has like a little Flappy Bird mini game, like Ooblets has one. There's so many games that have them, and I'm like, let's go! I'm so excited, and I love that they committed to their style. And it still looked like it could exist in this world of Chants of Sennaar, but we also know what it is, right? We know this is Whack-A-Mole, and we know this is Flappy Bird, but it's the Chants of Sennaar take and the visual style of it. So yeah, I really loved those. And I just like yeah, the chasing and the stealth and the puzzles, like that just all really worked for me. And I guess I really needed those things in order to keep going, to be honest, and to like yeah,
Mm-hmm.
break it up. So I was just a big fan of all the things that they tried. And I even went back and played the little Flappy Bird and Whack-A-Mole
So
games a
cute.
couple times. So
Yeah, it's funny because I love Sokoban puzzles. I love the push cart, like let's clear a path puzzles. They just make my brain just so happy. So I saw that and I was like, this game is for me. And it made me actually really sad because I don't think it really appeared again ever in the
yeah.
game.
Yeah.
Um, and I loved, there were just some puzzles that were really tactile that I was very pleasantly surprised, especially in the later levels with the alchemists, using the machine to like create the tools that you're trying to create. I was really impressed at how, you have to hold the button and you pull the lever and you have to push this other button, and you feel very much like you're in the character of it. For that particular area, the alchemist, you're like embodying that really well. And so I was really pleased at how they did break up a lot of the thinking with just, hey, just do this thing and it's not going to take you too much. You're just going to have a good time and you're going to feel really smart and it's going to go by fast. And so you'll feel even smarter. And so when the things take a long time, you're, you're like really hunkering down, you know that you've been successful. And so I thought it was really smart of the
Mm.
developers. Um, just to wind down the non-spoiler section, the music and art of the game, um, I want to go to Kate because you mentioned you had, a lot of thoughts on like the sounds and the visuals of the game. Maybe
Hmm.
the sound. We can start with the sounds. What did you think of just how the audio was presented?
Oh my gosh, I feel like this was the biggest surprise for me, which is that like I feel like this is going to be one of my favorite indie game soundtracks of all time after playing this game.
Wow.
I played the whole thing on Steam Deck with headphones, and I feel like that was really ideal for experiencing the soundscape. And I even found a little documentary, like 8-minute video, where the composer talks about the process of creating the music and sound design for the game. And it's just really interesting the approach that he took, because it's all like individual musicians recording all the different instruments. So there's like a lot of like different kinds of like flutes and pan flutes that are supposed to represent different feelings. He said something really interesting here about yeah, the oboe and English horn is supposed to represent the emotional state of the playable character.
Wow.
So it was, I would just recommend that everybody, if you're interested in this, watches this video, and I'll definitely share the link with both of you. But I could tell when I was hearing the music, like how special it was, and that it was all performed by live musicians, many different musicians. And he kind of mentions, this is a quote from the video. He says each musician's identity is now part of like the game's music and like the language that we're telling about the music. So yeah, I just like how many. And he also said something about how they weren't trying to represent a specific culture, so they were kind of trying to create their own culture within the game of Chants of Sennaar, that is sort of inspired by different instruments that you might hear from other cultures, but they can't really go all in on one specific culture because they're making their own culture. So that concept was really fascinating to me, and I found that it was reflected in the music really well. um, so yeah, I guess those are like some high level thoughts on the music, but I will also just quickly say that the sound effects were really great too. Like those are some of my favorite things. Like I love that the game tells us when we've done something correctly or when we've
Mm.
succeeded with that little like triumphant 3 second like horn sound cue. It's great to hear. And just the sounds of like walking on the marble or the slate that our little character makes sounds so good. So I just feel like overall, like from a sound effects perspective and a musical perspective, that it was just so, it really worked for me and was probably my favorite thing about the game. So I would love to hear what you both think as well.
Yeah, Emily.
Um, I don't know what more I can add, honestly, Kay. I love that you found that documentary. I'd love to
Yeah.
watch that. I think for me, I really love the environmental sort of ambient sounds. Like you said, walking on kind of, you could tell even with very little detail in the textures of the game, you could tell what kind of surface you were walking on or what kind of room you were in, if it echoed or if it didn't, and just sort of the birds or the absence of birds could tell you like just almost the atmosphere, like if it was warm or humid or whatever, musty. So I just really loved that. It felt very like embodied in this space. And I thought that was really cool. And I loved how music kind of came into play among the different cultures, and the
Hmm.
ones who saw themselves as musicians and ones who really loved music but maybe didn't see themselves as musicians. And I think I'd love to go back and play it again and just spend some more time thinking about how the music in each area like reflects the culture of that section.
Mm.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, I think it's something that I appreciate having your perspective on this, Kate, because you have more of that musical knowledge and performance knowledge that you can bring. Where as I was listening, I was mostly just like, this is really beautiful. I love hearing the different instruments, and I can tell that there are some like instruments I don't feel like I normally hear, but I don't exactly know what they are. And I did think about how with music, like music is yet another notation or type of language we use to
Mm.
communicate
Hmm.
different ideas. And so it was just really neat to think about, as you're playing, the music is so thoughtful. And I agree. I was I think 2 weeks ago you had mentioned like, oh, I had popped on the soundtrack and I was cleaning and listening to it. And I did the same after playing because I was like, you know what? I really want to appreciate the sounds because I think as I was playing, I was thinking so much I didn't get to fully
Mm,
listen. And listening to the soundtrack after playing, I think I do also want to go back and really start to like intertwine the two because the layers of your you have this written language, but music, which is another language, is clearly very important to all of these people in
mm.
some way. It's just really cool. And so, again, it's just another layer of meaning that this game has that I think on subsequent playthroughs is just going to be really nice to get into.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you both
Mhm.
liked it. And I feel like, yeah, it's so important to remember that like music is language. So I'm glad that that
Mhm.
was something that's just something great to think about. And they also mentioned like using more like quiet, meditative, easy listening sounds when you're exploring and trying to like figure out what's going on. So yeah, I'll definitely check out the documentary. It was super cool. But
Mhm.
yeah, just sounds great.
Yeah, yeah. We'll make sure I'll get the link from you so we can link it in the newsletter for folks because that's
Cool.
that's awesome. Any comments on like the art style, anything like visually you wanted to highlight before we jump into this sort of story deep dive?
I love what they're doing with limited color palettes here, and that each
Yeah.
section has its own specific limited color palette, and they all, I'm sure, go well together in some way, but I think they did that so effectively, and it just gave
Yeah.
you a great kind of emotional sense of the section, the like tier of the tower that you were in. And it's sort of it's I guess it is cell shaded, which is my like my favorite type of video game art. So I loved that. I in particular really loved the bards area.
Mhm.
I just think that the colors that they chose were so interesting and evocative, and unexpected.
Hmm.
So I love it. Great, incredible art.
Yeah. Anything you'd like to add with that, Kate?
I totally agree. And I just like love a limited color palette, and I loved how distinct each level felt visually. And I guess I also really loved the Monument Valley games, and I feel like this reminded me of that a lot,
Yeah.
just with the color choices and the size of your character, I guess, sometimes compared to how large the environment can feel in certain levels.
Mhm.
And all of the towers and the climbing. It really reminded me of Monument Valley. So yeah, I just love it. And I also love that the characters don't really have facial features. I find that for me, I actually can get more attached to characters that don't have distinct facial features, and I think kind of leaves some things up to the imagination when it comes to how we can interpret things. So I just felt like that choice visually made a lot of sense for a language or for a game where you're trying to figure out what certain words and languages mean. So yeah, I loved it's a beautiful game to look at for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, the scale is what really got me because I love a game where, especially if you are either very small in a big, big world or very big in a very, very small world. Um, I think either of those sort of ends of the spectrum excite me as a player, and the fact that you were often so small in this world that is just huge. It's just the scale of the civilizations and like the sort of the weight and age of where you were felt so prominent, and I thought that was incredible. Agreed on the color palettes. I also thought of games like Gree and
Mm,
Journey, where I think those, especially in that level structure, use quite distinct and limited color palettes as well to evoke different emotions. And so, in addition to Monument Valley, it brought to mind that for me. It's a beautiful game. Like I think I took a lot of screenshots, and I was
yeah.
not really expecting to. And so, yeah, I have a lot of screenshots from my time with it.
Mm.
That's cool.
Cool. All right. Well, I think this again, imagine the gong sound here, the GGG. It's time. We're going to dive into the story spoilers. We have and like the language spoilers and really get into some of the nuances of what we played and how we felt. So consider this your major warning for spoilers on like potentially talking through solutions or how we thought through stuff and what happens in the game itself. So I thought it would be really nice very quickly to go over, is it I'm going to say the Tower of Babel. I know the pronunciation has differed depending on where you study and sort of where you are. I am not sure if there is a correct way to say it, but I'm going to say Babel. Um, Originally, we talked about this last week, but just as a reminder, the sort of main story that we're referencing here is from the book of Genesis, which is in the Bible, and it's a parable why people around the world speak different languages. So it's one of those origin stories, how the world came to be type tales. And in the IRL version of this tale, everyone originally spoke a singular language together, and through their hubris said, we're going to build a tower in a city that's going to reach and touch the heavens. And according to this tale, God saw that and said, no, the arrogance, how dare you, and decided to break apart and change and piece apart the language so that these groups could not understand one another, making communication to finish the tower impossible. In the show notes, I actually found the painting that I was thinking of when I started playing this game, which is it's Pieter Bruegel's painting of the Tower of Babel, and it's just this sort of iconic, I feel like, painting that I grew up seeing, at least in school and stuff. And so I'll link a picture of that in the newsletter as well. But through this, we're seeing a lot of themes of mistrust, lack of communication and cooperation, and sort of our goal as the player is to try and figure out what is everyone saying, but also how to unite them. And so we start with the devotees as we're learning the ropes. And I think the main sub story here, in addition to learning generally what the devotees have gone through, is there's a sub story about finding the preacher. Really quickly, I guess, did either one of you want to sum up sort of what you felt like was the journey of the devotees, like what their story was in terms of coming to the tower? Or did you want me to take that? I feel like
I wasn't gonna offer, so Emily, please.
I can.
yeah, go for it.
And you, I think you picked up on some things that maybe I missed through playing.
Same.
So it sounds like they were struggling in some way around like their crops dying, which I guess makes sense considering some things that you find out are happening with the plant guy.
Yeah.
Nobody has names. And it felt like a very biblical thing, right? Like famine, we got to go, long journey, we cross the desert, and they find this and they got some sort of word from God to like go forth, go find something, some path forward. So they like cross this desert and find this tower, and I think we're drawn to it, maybe seeking help from the people there. They were stopped by the warriors who said, absolutely not, you cannot come in. And then they built this whole city and abbey at the base of the tower. And something that I found really like surprising to me, considering their whole thing was they wanted to get into the tower to seek help, was that you're actually blocked from going into the abbey at first too. So they've segregated their own society around these sort of like holy people, devotees, and like everybody else, the riffraff. And then there's this preacher that the devotees are sort of looking to for answers, for a path forward, and they can't find him. And then here come we, our little guy arrives.
Yeah, here comes us. Which honestly, that was a big question that I had from the start, because you start and you just kind of like wake up and you're like, here I go.
Yeah.
Let's go to the tower. And you're not dressed like everyone else here. So it's kind of also weird because you're not really, you don't belong, but you're just here and you also don't know the language. So that's a pretty big obvious sign that you are not from this place. And so, yeah, I thought it was, at this point in the game, I was honestly quite confused as to what the story was. I'm like, the warriors, I feel like warriors are being kind of rude and not letting people in for some reason. I don't know why or what's going on there. And we have the devotees who seem very faithful. I think they had oh, I forget, but like on when you go to the abbey, there's like a sign at the top that says like God, either God is, I think it's God is not dead, like God still exists. And so I think there's this sort of devotion that I was also a little bit confused by, like where is this passion and devotion coming from, other than I guess the word that I see in the mural, there was word that you got. And so my assumption, which I actually wasn't sure if it was 100% correct, was because of their focus on plants and some of the mural context, I think. That's why I wrote down like maybe it was something to do with the plants and the crops. Because otherwise, what would be so important to draw them to the tower? But that was a little bit of me stretching my own understanding of what was going on.
That's fair, because it does, yeah, you just sort of are made aware that God spoke to them. It's like their very first panel is like,
Yeah.
God let us know to go.
Yeah. Some notes that I wrote down too, because I tried to find patterns and things that I thought were interesting in the languages. I thought this plurals, so anything more than one, was indicated by repetition. So for us, like we would add an S to the end of the word for English, but here instead of saying like men or plants, you would say man equals men, or plant is plants, or like a garden, like where there's a ton of plants. And so I thought that was really interesting because it felt it was just a different linguistic structure. And I feel like that's a language structure that probably exists, I would assume, based on how this game is drawing so much from linguistics that I know actually exists. I'm curious now, and if anyone knows, please message or comment if there are languages that use this structure, because I feel like it's probably something real that exists in the world. And yeah, that was mostly it for the devotees. I did find the preacher. I know that was like a big thing. Did either of you find the preacher?
I don't. I feel like maybe I didn't. Now that we're talking about it, so I don't think that I did.
Yeah, Emily, did you want to share what you found?
Yeah, you find him as you're leaving, and like you're sort of trying to sneak your way into the warrior section, and he was trying to do the same, and was going through this kind of maze like ruins, and appears to have like fallen into a pit and did not make it.
Yeah.
Oh, that did happen to me. I did see that.
Oh, sevens for the preacher.
Yeah, honestly.
I actually felt bad because you don't go back and let them know. I was like, can someone let them know? Because everybody, all the devotees are waiting for him and looking for him. I'm like, someone needs to let them know.
I also thought that, because I'm like, everyone, like everyone's like, where's the preacher? Where's the preacher? And I found him and I was like, oh my God, like, what are they going to do when they find out the news? But your character basically is like, keeps going.
Gotta keep going.
Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah. Oh my goodness. And I feel like there was one thing in this level, in the devotees, that I think it happens in this level that I really, really enjoyed. That was like one of the most memorable moments for the game for me, which is like you have that game of hide and seek, or like with the child.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was such a beautiful example of how we can like learn like languages together, or like try to understand each other. And the music during that part is like so uplifting and lighthearted. And so I think I was like expecting more of those moments throughout the game of like playful interactions with people to understand what's happening. So I feel like that ended up not being super true for me, but I really liked that choice and that moment in this level, and that's kind of the thing that sticks out the most to me.
Yeah. Well, you think about like when you're learning a language, the number one way to learn and apply the language is actually talking to people. And so I think that's like a perfect example of like talking to kids or talking to people and just sort of like going for it
Mm-hmm.
is the best way. With the warriors, so we sneak, we say bye to the preacher, bye to everyone. We sneak behind the gate where the warriors are stopping the devotees from walking in. And we go upstairs and the vibe completely changes. We go from this like very warm, sunny sort of feeling. You have the devotees, so it's very like it feels very faithful in the sense of like sort of this abstract like belief in something greater than you. And I would say the warriors have a different energy. How would you describe it, Kate?
I feel like it's so I didn't understand at the beginning of this section like you can try to go into the front door but there's two guards that will get you. I don't think it's possible to get past them because believe me, I tried for like 30 minutes. I was like, there has to be a way, right? Before I found the little side area to go through. But
Mhm.
the vibe is definitely different. It's a lot colder. It's a little bit more like reverberant and hollow, just the way that things sound, the way that things look. I feel like there are people in uniform, a lot more of like a and yeah, you can get chased. You can get I guess you can die in the game and then come right back if they catch you. Maybe it's not death, but you can get captured. So that really surprised me because I didn't really know what to expect, and I was like, oh, now I'm in a place where I'm not necessarily safe. So yeah, the vibe is definitely like we're not welcome here. We don't look like everybody else. We don't have the right uniform. Very like authoritarian vibes. Lots of uh, I guess people in uniform and footsteps and just kind of like a very different visual and audio feeling. But then yeah, gameplay wise too, it's like, oh, I something bad could happen to me here. So yeah,
Mm.
I was more
Yeah.
cautious and alert, I guess.
Yeah. I love that because that's also captured how I felt too. Where I was just like, oh, I gotta actually like pay attention not just to the knowledge, but to like the people around me now.
Mm.
Emily, what about you?
um yeah, you it's so hostile immediately. And I think at first it felt daunting because so much of how you learn the language of the devotees is by talking to people,
Mm,
and they will talk to you. And I was like, I can't even be seen. How am I going to talk to people and find out what they're saying and what it all means? Um, and you do eventually get a path forward, but it definitely felt like a step up, like just difficulty wise. I was also really surprised that they actually seemed more religious than the devotees and
Mm.
more like
mm-hmm.
moralistic, because their words for one of the most fascinating things in this game to me are the words that each culture has for the tier of people sort of below them, physically below them
Yeah.
in the tower, and the tier of people above them. Um, so like the devotees call people like humans, and then there's like devotees who practice this faith, and the preacher, and then warriors. So it's pretty like descriptive. But the warriors call everyone who's not a warrior, who's like kind of beneath them, impure. Which
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
is so value ridden. And then above them are the chosen ones who they're trying to access and reach.
Yeah.
So I was like, ooh, this is, yeah, it felt like it got a lot darker really fast.
Yeah. The hierarchy was something that like it was super militaristic and like you said, the sort of military plus the religion hierarchy was strong here. Like I feel like the devotee level, everyone's like there's the preacher who has a little bit more of that status, and there's guards that help make sure that, you know, not the right, the right people are going into the abbey, but it wasn't like they had swords prepared to keep you out if they needed to. And so the fact that they warriors were prepared to with aggression fulfill those duties that they felt like again was mandated to them by this god or this calling that they have, it felt definitely much more intense. I also thought in addition to the language of the impure being referred to for the devotees, I think in the imagery, like in the murals, It took me a second, but they, I think, represent the devotees as demons. Like you see monsters, there's a scene or a part of the mural where the guards are guarding the tower against these demon looking characters. And at that point I was like, I think this actually is how they're literally demonizing the devotees. And so that was very I don't know, that was intense to see. Honestly, currently, especially with like everything happening in the US, I was like, oh God, like how intense and how much does this division go? Like how deep does this go for folks? I thought it was also interesting because they seem to be producing like goods, which is not something the devotees were at all doing. They were just there talking about faith and just sort of embracing that concept together. And then the warriors, as well as defending the tower, they were like making crates of things and bottles of, I think we kind of find out later it's maybe alcohol, but there's like a production that's happening here. I'm trying to think of anything else. This is where also stealth really comes into play. This actually wasn't too bad. This was maybe the second hardest section for me in terms of stealth, but it was not too gnarly.
I love that you picked up immediately on the fact that the demons in their murals were the devotees, because I was like, oh man, where are these demons? I haven't seen any demons yet. I was like, oh God, I gotta look out for those.
Yeah, I did not pick up on that. So,
and then eventually I was like, oh, they mean like everybody who's not them, basically.
Yeah. Well, and then later, because we'll actually see like monsters later, and so I second guessed myself a little bit because I'm like, wait, are there monsters? But I think I'm relatively sure it's meant to represent the impure, because at that point you also don't even know the monsters exist. And then I made a language note for myself that I thought was really interesting. In addition to just being more sharp and angular than the devotees' language, and also kind of put on a diagonal, I felt like where the devotees had more sort of right angles that they hit that were on like, I guess, I don't know, just on non-diagonals. The warrior language seemed sharper and a little bit more diagonal and diamond shaped.
Yeah.
And I compared it a little bit to like Norse, like the Norse runic sort of pictures of it that I've seen. So I thought that was interesting, and as a potential inspiration. I don't know for sure if it is. And then just because plurals was a thing that I noticed, they put a plural marker, kind of like us with S, to indicate plurals instead of repetition like the devotees, but they would put the plural marker at the beginning of the word to indicate plural before instead of the end like we would do. So I thought that was just really cool because again, it's just like a little pattern that I noticed. I was like, I think I understand what's going on. Anything else with the warriors that you wanted to highlight?
I'll just say that like this was definitely one of my favorite parts of the game, one of my favorite levels. I just like it was really up my alley in terms of gameplay, and I think this is the same level where you go all the way up and there's like a telescope and like an observatory, I think, which I really enjoyed that. So just like this was ticking all the boxes for Cater Blossom style. So I really like this level.
Yay. I love that. And then we go into what I think is maybe all of our favorite level, visually at least, is the chosen or the bards. So we know the warriors, they keep talking about the chosen ones who are above them. And as we go up, we finally get to that sort of tier of the tower. And it's this beautiful, like almost paradise-like landscape with yellows and greens and reds. These are people who love theater, who love music, and that element of leisure, I would say more so than any of the other groups. Don't think the warriors do anything to have fun. But they're so rude. Could you talk about that a little bit more, Kate?
Well, I just feel like they're such theater kids. Like I just feel like they're like not very self-aware, and they're kind of like, oh, I'm being so mean to me and other people. But I feel like, yeah, I just feel like they were arrogant, and they used the word idiot, which I feel like is unique for their language, right? Like I don't think any of the
Mhm.
other um uh cultures use
Even the
that language.
nerds, even the
Yeah,
nerds above them don't have the word for
right.
idiot.
And
Yeah.
Yes.
so, but it's funny because it's very like presented, like you see a lot of like the little masked face symbols, and they're wearing masks, so it is like very theatrical. And but yeah, they're kind of mean. Like I think I was like, oh, did that person just call me an idiot? Like that kind of hurts my feelings a little bit, because I'm already struggling to understand what's going on here. So yeah, I just felt like, but like you're saying, like the visual style is so like inviting, and it's like warm, and it's beautiful. So yeah, it's a really interesting level. But yeah, they seem like bullies and very arrogant. So
Yeah. I very much got like for any other theater kids or Wicked fans in particular, very much dancing through life
oh yeah.
scene feeling where it's just like there is the superficiality to some of how they interact with one another. And
Yes.
specifically also the people who they deem below them.
Hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Emily, what are some of the things you noticed about the chosen or the bards?
It's giving Sharpay from High School
Yeah,
Musical.
yes.
They were honestly, the bards were, as much as I love their section, they were such a letdown after the warriors built them up as the chosen ones. You
Yeah.
know, I'm like, these are the people that the warriors think were chosen by God and like bring blessings, and you know, and then you get there and they're like, you're not a warrior. I guess you can stay. And
Yeah.
then like that, you know. So I don't know why it's so funny, because the warriors will literally kick you out if they see you, but somehow I felt more like injured by the
Yeah.
bards.
Hmm.
Oh, that's so interesting. Well, it's just like the like I'd rather have someone say something to my face if they don't like me
Mm,
versus the they'll keep you
Yeah.
around but like talk behind your back. That's definitely the contrast that I felt.
totally.
Yeah. Um I loved their area. It feels a lot warmer, it feels a lot more inviting. I did really love their written language, and I know you
Mhm.
have notes in here, and I'll let you explain because you've clearly done some research into what this is maybe based on. My first thought was it looked like Arabic, which I also studied a little bit of, so I was really excited. I was really excited to see if it was going to be sort of readable, like right to left, which I guess when you're not speaking the language, it doesn't really matter how you're reading it, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Um, but I thought it was just such a beautiful, very fitting script for the culture that really reveres beauty and entertainment and joy for themselves, not for anyone else.
So sad. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, so rude. Yeah, I so this was really interesting because this was the first script that I was like, "Whoa, this looks kind of like a little bit more modern script." Like I think I've seen this in other like languages that exist today. So that was a really interesting feeling. I thought of Bengali. I also thought of Arabic. I ended up looking it up because I was so curious as to like what this writing system was called because I didn't know it off the top of my head. So this is all thanks to Wikipedia. But the writing system that looks like this, where it is a little bit more sort of calligraphic, is Devanagari, which is used by Hindi, Marathi, Nepali, and Sanskrit, and it's actually the fourth most adopted writing system in the world, which is very cool.
That's so cool.
And so, yeah, I thought like you were saying, it's really, really neat to see the personality of the culture also reflected in the style of writing that they have developed
Mm,
for themselves, where the warriors are so sharp and angular. Um, I think you use less characters even to speak commands and like say your sentences because they're more to the point and brusque like that.
mm,
And then with the chosen, it's like the beauty of the script itself is part of like the priority. And so I think it was really cool to see that reflected. Um, I also, and this is because I used to teach English, and so there's a little bit of that coming through. I thought their sentence construction was really cool because they used object, subject, verb as their word order. We in English typically use subject, verb, object. So the example that I wrote from the game is they would say, if you literally translated it, compass you find, instead of like you find the compass. And so I thought it was really neat, again, seeing these actual linguistic principles, grammar structures being put into a game where I'm like, if I was still teaching, this would be so much fun to like bring into the classroom, honestly.
Totally.
Fun fact about object, subject, verb, just to get super nerdy for a second.
Yes,
it is,
do it.
I believe it is the most rare sentence construction structure by default. There are a decent number of languages that have an option, like Chinese actually has an option to say things in kind of a passive sense using OSV, but it is the rarest like default sentence structure out of all the documented languages in the world. So bold of them to bold of them to use it. Also, it's like so rare that when I studied syntax, when you're studying linguistics, they give you lots of examples of different languages all the time to give you examples of all kinds of phenomena. And this is one where like lots of linguistics professors will just straight up pull out Yoda as their example.
That's what I thought of, yeah.
Because speak like this do I, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, everybody knows that, and it makes it slightly more relatable because it is a really like kind of odd structure for English speakers.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, it's really neat. And then you start thinking about like, okay, if these are the words that we choose to use as a culture, if this is the way that we feel our language should be presented visually, if this is the order in which we prioritize constructing our sentences, it's like, how are we, the anthropologist in me is like, how is this impacting the ways that we see the world, right? And there's this like idea where, there's this element of like, what does that show about us as a society, or about the people we're learning about, like their priorities? Like they have a word for idiot. None of the other groups did. What does this say about this group, that they're designating this type of descriptive word for a person? So I think that's just really, again, I'm amazed at the way the game embeds a lot of these concepts in these really seamless ways. I guess anything else about the chosen ones, the bards?
I don't think so.
Oh, I guess we haven't really talked about the fact that they have a system of servitude or indentured,
like
slavery.
Serfdom. Yeah, there's something going on there. Did you want to dive into it a bit more?
Yeah, so they have kind of this subclass, which it's interesting within this game where like labeling groups of people by name is really like important, and you can learn a lot from that. This group of people doesn't really have a name. There's no word for these people, but you can tell they're like, you know, bringing water, whatever, jugs of stuff to people, and like kind of scurrying around like behind the scenes. They have a whole like underground set of tunnels and rooms where they're hard at work making stuff for the bards. And eventually you even find like a little cave where they're organizing an uprising, which is really exciting. And I actually wish you saw, maybe I missed this, maybe there is more of this to be found in kind of the progression of the story, but I wish you could see some of that kind of come to fruition.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really started, I think, clocking, at least at this point of the game, was this idea of like, what does it mean to say we're going through a system of progress? What does it mean to have like a natural, quote, natural hierarchy? Because in the game, like even the technology, we start with the devotees who had like just sort of simple levers and gates to like manipulate water, and that's how you could get around. And then the warriors, they had like wheels to generate a little bit of power and energy to like lift heavier things. The bards, they have windmills. We'll talk about more technological advances later. Or, and I even hate saying that, like there's more complex technologies that get made, but it's like, what does that mean in terms of like, what are inherent hierarchies and what are the hierarchies that we think are inherent but maybe aren't. And like the bards are an example of like, they have this hierarchy in their society where they have like sort of serfs or indentured servants, and like to them that is right and natural, quote, but it's something that we would say is not. And so thinking about even the tower and how it's structured as a hierarchy, the devotees had the hierarchy of like, it's man, then preacher, then, you know, whatever, and God. It just, I started thinking right here about like, what does progress mean? What does hierarchy actually mean? Like, what do we take for granted and what do we not?
I think this game handles that concept really well of what your language means about you as a culture versus you as like a group of people, because that's kind of dangerous territory that you can get into and that linguistic researchers have gotten into in the past, of taking this idea of your language, you know, it says something about what you value as a culture and who you are, and what kinds of activities you engage in and that sort of thing. But if you take that to its extreme,
right,
you can get into dangerous waters where you're starting to say things about people inherently or in biological ways that aren't true, that, you know, their language isn't reflecting. So like, I think they do a good job of showing that just because the maybe sentence structure of the devotees is not as complex as the sentence structure of the bards, that they're not less intelligent or less capable as humans. So I thought that was a great, they did it in a really smart way, I think.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. And that's what I think, like, inherently, I think as players, when we think about like hierarchy and like even going up the levels, I think there's maybe a tendency to say like, oh, it's getting more complicated, thus it is getting, you know, quote, better. And I agree. I think they do a really good job of showing that that's not the case. Is complexity does not inherently mean like good or better than, which, yeah, I think you go ahead, Kate.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, and that makes me think of like how they each have their own, I guess, like special talent and value to add to this like overall world. Like, of course, we need the artists and we need the scientists and we need everybody. So it's a good point. Like I do feel like as the player, I did see value in all of them in an equal way. So yeah, it's really cool to think about because they're all contributing to like in a perfect world, right? We're all contributing to like an ideal system or an ideal way to like communicate and collaborate and problem solve, all by providing our different gifts and strengths and talents. So I do like how distinct each culture was with their like passion, or I guess their I guess ideals maybe is not the right word, or talents, but hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense. And that segues us into then, I did want to shout out the point between the bards and the alchemists was where we get, I think, my least favorite part of the game. We're going through sort of the tunnels and the underground mine areas, and you come across this monster that does not like the light. I will admit, you later learn that I think the scientists had dug a little bit too deep, and I was like, oh, this is like such a Lord of the Rings moment. Like they dug too deep into the mines. But that's what kind of unearthed this creature. And I will admit, for me, I was just kind of like, I don't connect with this and I don't get it. And I just think it feels like you put this in to have more stealth.
Mm.
Yeah.
honestly.
I didn't
Um,
understand why the creature was there, to be honest, but I was like,
yeah.
I'm enjoying the Tom and Jerry dynamic we have going on, but like, yeah, I didn't really get why it was happening.
It did. There were sections where it felt like, or maybe this was later on. Yeah, maybe this was a chase with the same monster later on, but it felt like a Scooby-Doo
Yes.
moment where you're like
Yeah.
running in one door, they run out the other door, like
Yes. Oh
you
my
Yeah.
bump into each
gosh.
other, go, yeah.
Yep.
It's so funny.
It's a little cheesy.
If I play it again, I will think of it as the Scooby Doo moment, and thank you because that will probably help me get through it. Um,
I
but
agree though. I
yeah,
didn't understand like where it came from. I still kind of don't really understand where it came from or
Same.
why it was there.
yeah, I
Sorry,
think.
there is a bug in my office. I know you've been able to see it on camera too, so I'm sorry. If I just
Eagle-eyed folks, this is like a mini game that you can play as you watch. If you watch on the different channels we're on, you can spot the bug, and you'll get bonus points that will get you
yeah.
nothing, but you'll have points. The scientists, again, the technology does become increasingly complex where there's lights, the elevators have more like electricity, and they're smithing, and they have libraries, so they're storing knowledge in different ways, not just with murals. um Again, this is just, I made a note where I'm like, how do we denote and prioritize this concept of progress? What does that mean? What are we saying when we say some progress is better or worse than others? And with this, I found this level really, really fun because this is when you started collecting sort of different objects like silver. I figure you get like silver and gold, and then you're trying to create a key to open the door because the scientists, they, when looking up at the tower, know that the fairies are behind the door, and they're the ones at the top. And I was just like, fairies? Okay,
That's
I'll just roll
cute.
with it.
This is how you know that they're not just inherently smarter than everyone else, right?
Yeah,
Is the
yeah.
moment you get to the fairies. I'm like, okay,
All right.
sure.
Yeah. Um, I think this is where I mentioned earlier, this language was the hardest for me to decipher
Mm.
simply because it had so many components to it. The one pattern that I did happen to notice was verbs tended to have circles. So that helped me organize. It was at this point I also had a small quality of life wish where I wish we could have organized the glyphs that we had alphabetically.
Mm.
Or just in another
Yeah.
way so that I could have found things a little more easily.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that thought will continue throughout the rest of the game at this point.
Yeah,
big
I
time.
was sort of fighting for my life during the scientists and alchemists. Like, I have a deep fear of hexagons and numbers. There are some things that when I see them, I'm like, ooh, like this just doesn't feel like we're compatible. So seeing numbers kind of had me freaked out a little bit, to be honest.
Mhm.
And I will say, like, was able to use a pretty helpful guide for this section. Because for me, I was just like, I'm gonna be here forever if I don't start figuring out what's going on. But yeah, this was for me, this is where the game sort of like, yeah, I guess became a lot less intuitive for me personally. But I still really enjoyed my time with it. But I think overall had a really hard time focusing on any narrative or story elements in this part because I was like, what is going on? So I found it quite challenging.
Yeah, Emily.
Yeah. Yeah, they threw numbers at us and I was like, "Oh, I thought I was playing a language game, guys. That's not cool." And they make you learn their system of math, which
Mhm.
I got eventually. It did. I had flashbacks to when I was studying Chinese, and you learn numbers like any language you're learning, you learn the numbers. And like Chinese has kind of a different system of like 10,000 is its own word basically, and so there's some extra complication in how you learn it. But I just remember being in class, and they would ask us, the professor would ask us, like, you know, math questions, like, what's 2 plus 2? And then we'd have to say, like, oh, the answer in Chinese. And I just remember moments where they'd be like, you know, what's 100 minus 64? And I'd very confidently be like, 46 in Chinese. And, you know, I remember my professor being like, I think you really said what you meant to say. You're right, but wrong. Like, no,
You were confident.
sorry.
And that's confidence is everything.
Yeah. Like, you just correctly said the number that you thought was right here. So good job, I guess.
Like, the mental math is already hard for me in English. You expect me to do that and then also do the conversion.
So I felt the same way. Yeah.
For me, it's like so bad that like if someone asks me to do math on the spot, like even if I could know the answer, I will just like get so anxious to like have an internal meltdown. So I think I also, and like honestly, I approach puzzles in the same way sometimes, where like I will sometimes fail because I'm too afraid to try, or like because I just tell myself that I can't do it. So I tried really hard to fight against that urge in this level. Like I was like, I don't need to be afraid. I don't need to be afraid. Like I just like got away from that monster first try. But if you show me, you're telling me there's numbers, like I'm more terrified than ever. So I tried really hard to be like open-minded and be confident. But yeah, for me, it's just like the numbers equal anxiety. So this was interesting for me.
Yeah. So funny. I feel like with all our powers combined, we could like get through the tower together for sure. You know what
true.
I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. No, it was very funny. I will say once I had figured out the numbers, I was really dreading like having to remember them. But that was when I was extra appreciative of the fact that like once you figured out and translated any of the glyphs, as you hover over it, the actual like sort of the English interpretation of it is hovered above, so you don't have to constantly like check your notes. It's just all right there. And I did appreciate that for the number one, because there was one point where you had to like input codes into a door, and I hadn't noticed that the numbers were there, which I don't know why they wouldn't have been, because they were there with the words, but I hadn't seen them because like the number was 1 and it was so tiny I couldn't see it on my Steam Deck. I was just like, oh god, am I gonna have to like remember a code in a different number system? And then fortunately the game was like, I got you, don't worry.
That was
so
nice.
That was really, really nice. And in unlocking all of these number systems, we eventually get all of the tools to make a key that's out of silver and gold and copper and carbon, I think. And we unlock a door, and we get to basically what is a first ending. And something unexpected happens, because as you open the door, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong in putting things out of order, I think the first time you open like quote fairy door, these robots come out and like, is that the second one? Okay, maybe that's the second one.
Yeah, because you get to explore the fairy section first, and then eventually you open that door, and then yeah.
Yes. Okay. So the first time you open the door, you go up, it's like rainy and gray. You get to the top, and then it's just like the end. And you're sitting at the top and it's raining. And you're just like, what? What is happening? What were your thoughts when you got to that ending?
For me personally, I was like, I know they're gonna make me do way more difficult things before this thing's actually over. Mm-hmm. So I was like, this is a very specific gloomy vibe, but I just know that this cannot be the end because I need to suffer more.
I was genuinely wondering if I did something wrong. I was like, did I get a bad ending?
Yeah.
Should I have gone back to tell them the preacher's dead? I don't know. But I was like, this can't possibly. Yeah. This can't be what they want me to come away with, you know?
Right. And turns out it isn't what they want you to come away with, because you can start the game again and there is a actual quote true ending. since we are getting close to and like overtime, I want to just go through that really quickly so we can get to some of the viewer listener questions. But we learn that basically this world, there is the people who made the tower, the fairies, the people who have the VR technology, who have the ability to immerse themselves through headsets that look like VR headsets that would exist nowadays, or like Wall-E headsets. I guess if you ever watched Wall-E with the robots and stuff, they're in chairs kind of like that. Um, these people were afraid of all of the new folks that were coming to the tower, so they closed themselves off, stopped communicating, put on the headsets, and just like became recluses essentially. um, we learn that we have been created to help reconnect everyone. And so the whole like next section of the game, the sort of quote true ending of the game, is going back through all of the different terminals, all of the different levels of the tower, and translating these conversations between the different hierarchies of people, and then disconnecting the exile, which is sort of this, I think, from my interpretation, the quote God that was calling everyone and kind of controlling everyone. How did you enjoy this sort of like true ending experience as you translated and got everyone sort of unified together again? Did you find that it was long? I'm very curious, and we'll start with Emily because I feel like it looks like you had thoughts in your eyes.
Yeah, I remember thinking that I really wish I had played the game in shorter succession, because I streamed it on Twitch, and I streamed it over the course of about 2.5 weeks. And so by the time I got to this point, I'd forgotten a lot about the earlier languages. And so I was having to
Oh, yeah.
pull out of my memory, like, you don't, in your little notes, once you confirm like how the language or what every word means, you get that confirmation. You can always return to it, but you don't get very much information logged in there about like how each language is put together. And so trying to remember, like, how does this language work with plurals and stuff like that, was, I think I would have been more immersed in the narrative moment if I could more easily conjure up all of that information. And I was also just a little bit confused about what I was experiencing, because it was very like glitchy. You jump from like tier to tier very quickly. Your little friend from the very beginning of the game returns and kind of helps
Yeah.
you
That was
navigate, which I
cute.
really loved. But I thought it was a cool kind of coda to the whole thing, to bring everything back together. And I loved translating the conversations between people of the different cultures, because you could see in real time how that was influencing things. And I loved the conversation between the warrior and the devotee, where the warrior's
Yeah.
like, we don't like you, like you don't like music. And the devotee's like, yeah, we do. And then like pulls a lute out and starts playing. And the warrior's like, oh, cool. We're pals now.
Yeah.
Um
If only things
but
could be that easy.
yeah, if only. But I loved that kind of pulling together of all the threads.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like, and I did play most of it like over the course of 3 or 4 days. And I feel like I like have some issues with memory, and so I was like, what? Like I am gonna go through all of the words and try to figure out like the translation. That took me a really, really long time, but I do think it was worth it. And I do really like that they have you revisit places that you've already been. Because
Mhm.
as I was doing that, I was sort of recalling, like, oh, this is it. Like, this is the whole journey that we've been on. Like, remember when I was here and then I was here? I really liked that they did that, because I feel like it sort of helps tie it all together in a really meaningful way, and to see like the excitement of the different cultures communicating when there was understanding happening. I thought that that was really beautiful. So I did really struggle to like find the correct words and put them in the right sequences, and it took me a long time. But I think overall, I'm really happy that they had us like revisit all of these places and connect. Um, So yeah, I thought it was a special choice. But at times I was like, I don't know which order to go in terms of like going down and back up the tower, and I don't know which side to go on.
Mhm.
So it took me quite a while, but I do think it was worth it.
Yeah, I think I loved I loved the idea conceptually, and like in the moments where had completed a translation and I saw the dialogue happening, it felt really, really rewarding. It did lose some of the pacing for me. Like I think
Mm,
just because I also ran into the trouble where it's like I would have to run around and I would get a little bit lost because I'd forget where like a different terminal was, or I'd like go and get something, and to like go to the purple door, I would get lost. And it's just, I think some of the running around was what really got to me because I would be excited because I just translated something and then I wouldn't know where to go next. And so there was a
mm,
moment, like a lull that would happen sometimes
totally.
between them. But I agree. Conceptually, I love it when games allow us to do like a victory lap. And it felt very much like an elaborate victory lap of like, you
Yeah.
figured out all these words, you get to apply it now, and it's going to be hard work, but you're going to feel so good. And I think it was overall really impactful. Um, and then as you go through, you communicate, you bridge these gaps. I think, what is it? I thought also it was really interesting that I think it was the scientists and the bards, I think, were those the ones that were like, I'm looking for my brother. I don't know where he is. I'm your brother. And it's like, oh, we're all good
So
now.
cute.
It's just
Yeah.
so cute. I was like,
And
oh
it's
my
just in a
gosh.
book. He's like, I saw in a book.
I
We're
saw in a
brothers.
book. We're
It's like,
related.
wow, cool.
And I'm like, man, this is so great. I love solving, like, we're creating world peace right now.
Mm,
So I thought that was really, really fun. I thought it was also interesting that because each place that you go, there is one of the VR people like hidden in there. And so I thought that was interesting because it seemed like in my canon sort of narrative, I'm like, oh, maybe the people at the top did send down like messengers to try and connect people, and then
mm.
it just like never ended up happening. um for, maybe because of exile, sort of this evil presence, or maybe because they just got too scared to do the communication and be a mediator. But I thought that was also an interesting layer that maybe upon replaying would like, I feel like I could dig into a little
Mm.
bit more. um but yeah, by the end, everyone is freed from their devices. Everyone has linked together. And what I thought was really cool is the symbol that you see that I think is the symbol. I forget if it means fortress or faith. There's a symbol that you see through all of them, um, that they show kind of like unifying into a 3D model instead of
Mm.
just a 2D glyph. And I thought that was like a really fun visual way of showing like, now that we're all together, there's like this 3D representation instead of this
Aw.
flat 2D thing. And I thought that was very cool.
I think it's like it's God for the devotees.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
duty, I think, for the warriors. It's beauty for the bards. It's like
Oh,
everybody's
yeah.
like highest ideal. And I'm like, that's
Yeah.
so
That's so
cool.
Very
good.
cool.
Yeah, it's like the combination of that is what like, yeah, kind of creates the whole picture. And kind of going back to, because this is also where I felt like I felt it in the music, was like, there, you can have a single oboe playing, you can have, a pan flute or a horn, or even a horn section, but the combination of all of these instruments is like what makes an orchestra or a
Mm.
piece really feel like multifaceted. And so again, it's like the layers of representing that is just really cool.
Mm.
um as we're closing out, I know we're over time, so let me know also if you have like a super hard out in the
Oh, I'm
next
good.
immediate future. Okay. um I have a couple of questions sent in by folks. The first few are from Valis via email. And I'll start with one that is the same as what Monica also emailed us, which are sort of, how did you enjoy the different parts of the game in addition to language deciphering? How did you find like other puzzles compared to the language puzzles? Like when it's all is said and done, did you have maybe any favorites? And we talked a little bit about it, but I wanted to make sure that that question got asked from both of them.
I feel like I've said a lot about how much I enjoyed all the other parts besides the language identify. Not that I didn't enjoy that part, but yeah, for me, loved all the puzzles, all the mini games, and the stealth sections. So
Mm-hmm.
I liked them a lot. To me, it felt like they were a necessary complement to the language section, but that was my favorite. The language deciphering was absolutely like the core experience for me. I do feel like one general puzzle that all of the tiers had was the need to navigate. And you kind of mentioned this, Jenny, but like I got lost quite a bit and you don't get a map. And that is something that I think maybe was rewarding in the end because I did kind of get the lay of the land of most of the sections, but not all of them. But I could have really used a map personally.
Yeah, that would have been really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same, I think, as both of you, where the language is the pillar of the game, and rightfully so. I think that like grounded everything, but it was really helpful as a player to have moments that we were not focused on that, just to give like the brain a little bit of a break. Especially I played it over the span of about 5 play sessions within about 2 weeks, but especially if you're like barreling through it and like you were Kate in just a few days, it's like, oh my gosh, absolutely those would be necessary as palate cleansers. Valis also asked, was there a community whose language resonated with you more than the others, and was there one that you found particularly difficult? And I'll let either of you, I'll let you think first and hop in as you feel like you have a response.
I saw this question in advance of recording. I thought it was really interesting because I think that I didn't even think about that while playing. I was very much in the mindset of like, I'm a linguistic anthropologist or I'm a linguist right now. Like, I'm meant to be understanding these people. And I don't think that any one group or language resonated super strongly, except for maybe the language of the anchorites, the VR people. It just felt really I think not in a good way. It felt a little bit more relatable, maybe because they live in a society that's a little bit more like our own in terms of the technological development. But one of the things that really stuck out to me was when you disturb one of the fairies in their VR mode, they pull up their helmet and they're like I love exile, or like I'm doing this thing, and they say like I hate you for disturbing them. But it's the first time any character says I hate you. And I was like, that's really interesting, and I think unfortunately very I don't know, resonant with the world we live in right now. So
Yeah, what about you, Kate?
I think the first level, the devotees, I've just felt like, and I don't know if it was because it was the first level, just felt it was a little bit more approachable or intuitive for me. But I found that language did resonate with me, and I feel like there was a lot of exploring during that level where like I was like, oh, I bet that means music, and I love the symbol for music. So to me, I think that was the one that just resonated most with me, or was like I guess one that I connected with the most. But overall, like at the end of the day, for me, a lot of these symbols look the exact same and are extremely hard to differentiate from each other. So yeah, I guess that's my high level thoughts to that response to that question.
Yeah, I think for me, I think the most difficult was maybe the scientists, the alchemists. I forget exactly what they were called. That one, for whatever reason, I think maybe also it was just how I was playing. That was like at the end of a play session. So like my brain was already fatigued. So I just remember having the most difficulty just kind of going through that language. I do think that the society or the community that resonated most also for me were the fairies or the anchorites, simply because it did feel very of like closer to our time of people feeling very isolated in their pods of like their VR pods. And I think a lot about like how we use the phone nowadays and how information even through the internet is very what's the word, it's like the algorithms really hone in both positive and negative ways like the information you even have access to readily. And so I think that one just resonated the most from an emotional standpoint because I was just thinking about that a lot while I was playing that tier. um that was a great question. Thank you, Valis. And then really quickly from Monica, she asked also, what strategies did you use to translate the different languages? I tried a little bit of everything, notes, going back and rewatching the scenes, but overall was just glad they gave us everything in small chunks we could kind of guess at if needed. Did you have any tips that you felt like were your go-tos?
I loved, like Kate mentioned before, I loved that feature where you can just type in your guesses as you go, and that will actually appear, like whatever you've typed in as your guess will appear in sentences or the little like bubble above whatever you're reading. And so I was really liberal with what I put in that box, and I just, if I thought, maybe this is cheese, I would just write it. And so I'd have like man, cheese, love, all as one. Like it's probably one of those based on different things I was seeing. And that helped me then narrow down because it was really hard to remember from one interaction to the other, like what a guess was that I had previously.
Yeah.
So I really loved I love that feature a lot. I'm trying to think if I had any others. I don't know. How about you, Kate?
I did a lot of just going around in circles, like revisiting other areas and like, did I miss a symbol on the wall? Did I miss, because I feel like the game does try to clue you, like that little thing will pop up when you should be looking at something. So you can like open your little notebook. But I feel like I did kind of just blow through a lot of those in my first like run around of each level. So I actually found that revisiting everything and just like kind of looping around the map of each level like really helps me notice a lot of things and yeah, just like pay more attention to where symbols might be, and also in turn helped me learn the maps pretty well at the end of the day. So yeah, but I do love being able to guess words. I think it's so special and creative that they have that built into the game, and to me was like a big factor of my enjoyment and problem solving process. So yeah.
Yeah, I think like there were a couple times where I did do a little bit of process of elimination where I'd have like two of them I was 99% sure, and then one I was a bit more uncertain, maybe between a couple, and being able to just like do a quick plug and check was really helpful in a pinch. And then I also appreciated that if you are depending, I think it kind of depends on also how the order you discover, because I think if you maybe don't find all of the glyphs at once, this may be a little harder. But in the way that I explored, I felt like I was able to take it in pretty bite-sized chunks, where as long as I kept up with my notebook and I didn't let too many glyphs sort of get logged before I did a few like notes in there and locked them in, that helped me. So just not procrastinating, because I think with the warrior level, I had procrastinated a little bit and there were more glyphs for me to translate, and that took me a little bit more time. But with all the other levels, I did it very consistently in smaller bite-sized chunks, and that helped a ton.
Yeah, it's a
That
great
happened
tip.
to me with the alchemist level where I was like, ooh, that's a lot of symbols and I have no idea what any of them mean. Actually, another thing that I did was what you described, Jenny, was like looking for some patterns across different symbols that might indicate like this is a verb or this is a person. And almost all of the languages had some kind of like structural clue as to
Yeah.
what kind of word. So sometimes in the little hint box, I would just type verb. And so I'd
Nice.
know
Oh,
as
so
I was going
smart.
around, they're like,
Yeah.
okay, I verb blank. You know, and that
Mhm.
actually helped a lot.
Oh, I
That's a
love
great
that.
idea.
That's
Yeah,
super
that's
smart. Big brain. Um, and then the last question I wanted to highlight, and this is also from Valis, is let's see, I'll add the context first. So, Chants of Sennaar takes place in a world where classes exist in a physical hierarchy. Do you think one of the messages of this game is that these hierarchies result in unequal societies? And subsequently, do you think Chants of Sennaar is an anarchist text?
hmm.
So I would say to the first question, yes, absolutely. I would say the main message is that the kind of hierarchy that is put in place here is not only results in unequal societies, but actually poses obstacles to everybody in virtually everybody in this society. Um, and like Kate said, everybody ultimately has something to contribute. Every culture has something to contribute, and we get further. Kind of going back to this, the myth of Babel, like
Mm.
we would have made it. We would have made it to heaven, right? In theory, like if everybody had the opportunity to work together. And I think it's like, yeah, I think it really speaks to the potential that we all have if we can find some mutual understanding, um, and bridge those gaps. I don't know that I would say that this is an anarchist text first and foremost. I don't know, because I think that anarchy sort of is prescribing like a way of a way of structuring society. I don't know that this game's trying to do that, specifically. We end the game on everybody happily coming together, but we don't see how they move forward.
Mm.
Hmm.
They're clearly not going back to their old way of doing things, but we don't actually know how they're going to structure their society now.
Hmm.
This is my interpretation.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a really great question. I feel like I would also agree that that is one of the main messages of the game for me anyway, but then I kind of got stuck on like we are we an anarchist cuz like we were made by somebody else and so like we're the catalyst for the change in the communication and the desire for more communication and collaboration and peace was like decided by someone else and then they made us, so that kind of just got me down some interesting like thoughts. Like this question sparked some really interesting thoughts for me about like what I understood about the game and as like the playable character. So yeah, I don't know, I feel like, but I do feel like the answer to the first question is yes for me. And I guess I'm not familiar enough with like anarchist text to be able to say like if this is one or not. But I think that it's a really great question. And yeah, I think the ending of the game, like now that Emily's kind of explained her answer, like I feel like the ending of the game is like very positive and like happy, but like I don't know where we go from here or what's next. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I love both of those responses. I also agree that one of the messages that the game is showing or trying to show is that these hierarchies are resulting in um, sort of inherently unequal societies and societies that subjugate potentially others. Um, I I think if you wanted to be gracious with it, you could read it as a like optimistically sort of anarchist text where you can say like maybe the person who created this game would want there to be like that kind of sort of structure of society afterwards. But I also agree that there isn't much in the game and from the developers within the game that tell us exactly how they want people to proceed
Mm,
other than we want everyone to get along, which I think is a great like step one, but it doesn't answer a lot of the fundamental questions of like does this mean, like the preachers, are they like, will the preachers be okay not being at the head of whatever? Or like, will the warriors suddenly feel like a certain kind of way? I don't know. Maybe this is
Can the
getting too in
bards
the
stop
weeds.
calling people idiots? We don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. It's like we have reached a first step of willing to communicate, but I think it's now a matter of like, well, with each of these ideals that obviously are creating something greater than the individual parts, what is their ultimate desire for their tower? Like, what is the ultimate desire for their society? And we don't know that, like, having, like, maybe they do want some sort of like stricter government, setup, but we don't
Mm.
know. And so I think in theory, if you're reading this optimistically, you could say, hey, I think they've set up the scene to have this more like anarchist structure, but nothing in the game has convinced me that that's definitively where it's going
Mm.
and like where they
Yeah.
want it to go.
I
Mhm.
also kind of feel like if the goal is to collaborate to make a special or like an ideal world or society, like, yeah, to me, collaboration, in order to have true collaboration, you need everyone to be equal. Like, that's just something that I really believe. Like, if you're going to make anything together, that everyone needs to be equal. So yeah, I don't know. That brought, that brings something interesting to my mind. So yeah, I don't know. I think this is such a good question. I'm going to be thinking about it for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think there's there's a lot more to this game than I think I initially, like, with so many of the games that we play with Geeks and Grounds. I feel like I go in and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm very excited because I know it's going to approach these themes and make us think about these things. And then through both the community questions and the act of playing the game itself, I always love how much my brain's expanded, I guess,
Mm.
and how I consider these experiences. So yeah, thank you for that question.
Mm.
Valis, that was really good. And Monica as well, for your questions and comments and sharing your strategies that you used. I guess to close out, any sort of thoughts that you would like to leave folks with in terms of your experience on the game? Um, who would you recommend it to? Did you have a good time with it, which we kind of answered already? And would you play this again? Would you revisit this game?
I would just love to say that if anything that I've said about my experience with this game is resonating with you, I would encourage you to try it because there are guides out there. But I would also add to maybe play it with another person if you can. I feel like I would have had a great
Mm.
time playing this with my partner or a friend. And something I wish I would have done was to sort of invite somebody else along for my playthrough experience because I feel like there's a lot that you could do together in this game and like just having two brains instead of one would be really, I think,
Mm.
it would be a great game for that. So, but I think that it would be a great game for anybody to try. And I'm really happy that we got to play it. And thank you for inviting us and picking this game because otherwise, I'm not sure when I would have gotten around to it or if I naturally would have gravitated towards a game like this. So that's what I think.
Yeah. What about you, Emily?
I mean, high level, like I said, I loved it. This is like one of my ideal gaming experiences, I think.
Mm.
And I will probably revisit it just because there aren't that many other games out there like it. Um, I do think of that I would recommend this game to just about everybody. I don't think everybody is going to have the same kind of experience or find it as easy or challenging or maybe even interesting. But I do think that one of the biggest things that you get out of studying linguistics and other languages is that it helps you think more about your own language and how you communicate. And I think that there's so much that we
Mm.
can learn and just become better and more thoughtful by doing that. So I think like just as an overall experience, this is one that everybody could get something really great out of.
Yeah, I agree. I think um again, I already had enjoyed my time with this game with the limited time I had spent before. Actually playing it and finishing it, I my appreciation for this game is really deepened. I feel like I'm probably going to be advocating for this game a lot harder now when talking to folks and recommending games in general. Um, And I think it's interesting because I often, as someone who loves like puzzle games, and like the deductive sort of curiosity based games, especially, I hear people always asking like, "What do I do if I've already played Outer Wilds and Obra Dinn and Blueprints?" And I think what I love about this game is it scratches a lot of that itch without being as heavy of a time and energy investment as a lot of those other games are. Like especially Blueprints, that's like, oh my gosh, down the rabbit hole. You can go so deep with that and it can be so much. Whereas Chants of Sennaar, again, like, yeah, I think it took maybe 11-ish hours for me to complete. And so within, just a few hefty gaming sessions, you can have this really joyful and immersive puzzle experience without, I think, yeah, some of the complexities I think that the others also have, which is fun in their own right, but it's nice to have something that's a little bit more bite-sized and compact. Yeah, that is our time with Chants of Sennaar. I'm so happy to thank you again for not only joining me for this discussion, but for the Indie Discovery at the start of the month, just highlighting other indie games. I would love to, as we wind down our time together, folks need to know where to find you, where to keep tabs on all of the work you're doing, because both of you are doing such good work in this industry. So if one of you wanted to share all of the links and sort of what you have coming up, if you have anything in particular, please feel free.
Go for it, Emily.
Sure. Well, first off, Jenny, thank you so much for having us. This was I think I can speak for both of us when I say this was a highlight of our year to get 100%. To be here, and to get to talk about this game with you. So thank you. And thank you to everybody listening. You can find all of our content from No Small Games, all of our episodes, as well as all of our written reviews and indie game articles at nosmallgames.com. You can also find No Small Games, the podcast, on any podcast platform, just about all the big ones and many little ones that I don't even know about or could name. We are just starting off. We're early on in our fall season. So we just put out an episode on Many Nights a Whisper, which was fascinating.
Outstanding. Yeah. It's a great episode.
Thank you. It was very philosophical, kind of like this one. Sorry, We're Close is coming up, and we've got some really cool guests. We've got Rachel Watts from Thinky Games and Indie Venture, and we've got Jill Grote from Indie Council, Indie Informer, coming up later. So it's a great season, a great time to jump into No Small Games. And you can find us on Blue Sky, Instagram, at No Small Games. Anywhere else, Kate? Did I miss anything?
No, you got it.
Cool.
Yay. Yeah. And I don't know if I think, Emily, you mentioned you're on a little bit of a break with streaming. I don't know if you wanted to plug your personal channels as well. Please feel free to.
Cool. I'm A Specific Egg on Blue Sky, Instagram, and I stream pretty regularly on Twitch, like 3 days a week. I'm away for a couple of weeks while I'm traveling, but I'll be back in like mid-October.
Nice.
And I'm Cater Blossom on Instagram and Blue Sky, and and Twitch, where I sometimes just decide to stream a game called Super Crush KO or whatever I feel like doing. So yeah, you can find me in all those places, and I like to talk about indie game music a lot. So if anyone likes to share about that, or I'm always ready to hear about the next indie game soundtrack that I should be listening to. So yeah, thank you. And I want to echo what Emily said. It was so special to come on Geeks and Grounds, Jenny. Thank you for having us. And it's just been great to get to know you more over this last year. And we loved having you on our show too. So I'll also say, please, everyone, come listen to Jenny on our show. We talked about 1,000 Times Resist. If you have a spare 3 hours, it was such a lovely discussion.
Little chat. Yeah.
Just a little chat.
Yeah, just
super lighthearted.
No, that genuinely is a highlight of my year. That's like one of my favorite conversations, just in general, that I've had. So yeah, echoing the same. It's been so nice, like seeing you at events too, and like being able to chat more in general. It's just like brought me a lot of joy. So thank you so much. And for everyone listening, Geeks and Grounds, you can find us at geeksandgrounds.com. I am a abysmal at social media. I'm trying to get better. I will get better. This is a goal. But you can also find us on Instagram at Geeks and Grounds and Blue Sky at Geeks and Grounds. And next month, just to announce the game that we'll be doing for October, we'll be playing a little game called Mouthwashing. It is only 2 to 3 hours long, so know that you could get through it in one play session if you wanted to. So I figure I have a lot of travel coming up. I'm actually still debating how to, or if there will be an indie discovery episode, or if we're just going to drop the mouthwashing episode at the end of the month. We're going to see. I'll keep you all posted via the newsletter. But for sure, we're going to be playing mouthwashing together. And I am very, very excited because it's a short game with a lot to dig into. Have either of you played mouthwashing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love that. It's one of my faves.
Yeah. See, y'all, Kate says it's one of her faves. So there we go. So for this week, I hope you all have a wonderful time diving into mouthwashing if you're playing. And if you are stuck in your tower somewhere, just take off that VR headset. Just get off of the level that you're on. Go find other people to talk to. Go outside. Dare I say, touch grass. Just don't be like the bards and call people idiots. All right. See y'all next time. Bye.
Bye.